Hey, hey, hope your day went well today. I decided to scare you to sleep today. So just close your eyes, relax, and listen to these creepy stories until you drift off. The first story I have for you today is the Enfield Monster. It happened in Enfield, Illinois, the United States, in April 1973. Imagine you go back home one day after a long day at work. You're tired, you want to relax and wind down, but you find your children waiting for you, horrified, wanting to tell you that something, a bizarre, unidentifiable creature, was trying to break into the house when they were alone. This was what happened to this couple, Henry and Lil McDaniel, at around 9:30 p.m. on an early spring night in 1973, Enfield, Illinois, US. Shortly after listening to his kids recount the story, Henry was alerted to a peculiar scratching sound at his front door. When he went out to see what it was, expecting perhaps to find a dog or a cat, Henry was instead met, to his surprise, or rather misfortune, with a horrifying and very strange creature. He described it as grayish in color, having 3 legs, 2 disproportionately short arms, a short body, and 2 pink bright eyes as big as flashlights. Completely mortified by this awful sight, Henry slammed the door and rushed to grab his gun and a flashlight, intending to hunt the creature down. He shot it 4 times, but only one of the bullets hit the beast, which allegedly made it hiss like, quote, a wild cat, end quote, and run away, disappearing from McDaniel's sight and into the railroad and the cover of the trees. Henry then called the police. Upon close inspection and investigation, the police discovered several scratches in the siding of the house and footprints that were very similar to a dog's, but having 6 toes instead of 4. Other than that, they could not find any trace of this entity, so they dropped the case and things cooled down for a while. That is, until Henry encountered the same creature again on May 6th at 3 a.m. It was once again loitering about near the train tracks. Word spread about, quote, Enfield horror, and people began flocking to the small town hoping to see the infamous entity and hunt it down, leading to many arrests. It is noteworthy that it wasn't just Henry, Many people did actually see the alleged monster or hear its shriek. The first known witness was a child named Greg Garrett, who had been playing outside in the backyard at around 9 p.m. that same night, before being attacked by a bizarre entity, which he described very similarly to what Henry said. Greg's tennis shoes were torn to shreds, claiming it occurred when the monster ran past him and stepped on his feet. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, were very puzzled and did not know what to make of what they just heard, because Greg was not in the habit of making things up. Later on, one man, Rick Rainbow, who was the news director, claimed to have seen the Enfield horror as well, with 3 other men around an abandoned house not much further from the McDaniels' house. While he could not get a clear description of the monster because it was in shadows and had its back towards the men, he did describe it as being gray, 5 foot tall, and stooped over. Rainbow managed to record the ungodly screams of the Enfield horror, but their recording was never released to the general public. Those cries were heard by others over the next several days, near the railroad tracks close to McDaniel's house. After that night, the creature jumped over the tracks, this time for good. Just as quickly as the monster arrived, it disappeared, never to be discovered again. Now, interestingly, 3 decades prior to this incident, it was around 1941-1942, people in Mount Vernon, a small village less than 40 miles away from Enfield, had a string of similar sightings. These encounters involved a mysterious beast that could leap anywhere from 20 to 40 feet. In the metric system, that would be 6 to 12 meters in a single bound. It would terrorize the local people and is supposedly responsible for numerous animal deaths and mutilations in the region. While nobody is sure about this weird coincidence, it is possible that this was, in fact, the same creature. In 1978, sociologists used this story as a case study for a paper on social contagion. It was cited as an example of collective behavior where a group or crowd can be affected by the spread of, quote, group emotions, unquote, such as, quote, panics, hysterias, collective visions, and extreme instances of suggestibility, end quote. No concrete evidence was ever found to prove the existence of this Enfield horror. No pictures of it or of the scratches, the footprints, the torn-up tennis shoes. Many believe it was an elaborate hoax to attract tourists to the small town. But if that's the case, how could the 2 neighbors, Henry and Greg, give a very similar description of the creature without having spoken to each other beforehand. I think it's an intriguing story. What do you think? The next story we have today is equally disturbing. It is the Suicide Hotel, El Hotel del Salto, translated to the Hotel Philippe. This hotel was designed by Carlos Arturo Tapias, who was an architect, in 1923. It is located in Cundinamarca, Colombia, approximately 30 kilometers from Bogota, the capital city. It sits directly across from a 180-meter high natural waterfall, the Tequendama Falls. Now, a little backstory. In the Egyptian language of the Muisca people, who are the natives to the land before the Spanish invasion, the word Tequendama meant he who precipitated downward. According to the legend, the indigenous tribes people jumped into the sacred waterfall during the Spanish conquest to avoid being enslaved, tortured, and killed, believing that the gods would transform them into eagles mid-jump and they would fly away freely. According to another Muisca myth, Bogota was flooded, but the gods created a patch, and formed a waterfall to save people from dying in the flood. So this makes the fall a doubly important site of salvation for the Muisca people. Now back to the hotel. At first, it was intended to be a mansion for lavish parties to be thrown. Its breathtaking location and majestic views of the waterfall were very attractive for the wealthy. Moreover, the building's high windows and French architecture reflected the joyful aesthetic of the roaring 1920s. So people flocked to the mansion to enjoy themselves and to have a good time. This only lasted for a few years though, because by 1928 it has been turned into a popular hotel. But then the horrific tragedies began. What once was a popular vacation destination soon garnered a far darker and more sinister reputation as being allegedly haunted. Oh yeah. Hotel workers would inexplicably leap to their deaths out of the windows. Guests, too, would jump out of their rooms facing their inevitable death. We know of at least one homicide that had taken place there, when a guest was brutally murdered by a young socialite in one of the rooms. Blood was splattered all over the walls. Guests often claimed to witness spooky apparitions around the hotel at night, including the ghost of the murdered socialite. Others claim that loud screams can still be heard coming from the abandoned hotel. Additionally, they say that the constant mudslides on the road to reach the property are almost acted as a warning sign of the horrors awaiting the visitors. Oh, of course, people love to talk and they love making stories. So we don't know how much exactly of these apparitions and sounds are actually true. But the hotel definitely gained a legacy, and it wasn't a good one. It was a place where people took their lives. Some people say that the falls seem to hold an irresistible pull for those struggling with their inner demons and their mental health. Visitors to the hotel feeling overwhelmed by their personal struggles reportedly chose to follow in the footsteps of the Muisca people by taking their own lives. As time went on, the hotel became infamous for the death toll that followed it. The suicides became a nickname that really stuck, casting a long shadow over the once luxurious destination for lavish parties and wealthy people. Today, however, Hotel del Salto was transformed into a cultural museum, and hundreds of people still flock to it, either mesmerized by its beauty or by its history, or maybe both. Yet, even now, the hotel's reputation as one of the most haunted places on earth endures. Many visitors report strange sensations and an eerie presence as they walk into the rooms of the building. Some claim to hear whispers in the wind, while others report the feeling of being watched or deeply followed by unseen eyes. The combination of its tragic past and its isolated location contributes to its otherworldly, terrifying atmosphere. Would you want to go there someday? Let me know. Our final story for today is quite disturbing. It's about the doll. You know, we've all watched movies about haunted dolls, haven't we? Seemingly innocent dolls, harmless, that we give to children. Their weird faces. Their faces are kind of unsettling, to be honest. So maybe that should have been our first warning, but whatever. And then they end up being very sinister and twisted. Those ones. They're a staple in horror movies and scary stories. Imagine that happening in real life, though. That's exactly what happened with the Madonia family. It was Christmas in 2013 when they received the Disney's Frozen Elsa doll. The children were very thrilled by the gift. They were happy and excited. You know, it's a doll. They love it. They didn't know that things would only get creepier and more unsettling from there. The doll had a button that would make it sing the Elsa songs, like Let It Go and other songs, when pressed. Initially, it was supposed to sing in English, and it did for 2 years. But then, all of a sudden, without any warning, and for no reason at all. The doll starts alternating between English and Spanish. Now you might think, oh, this must be a manufacturing defect. And you'd probably be right if the story ended here. But it didn't. Get this? The song, or the stall, started to talk and sing randomly even with the switch turned off. It's also said that it would move from one room to another without anyone touching it, just by itself. Deeply disturbed, and rightfully so, the family decided to throw the doll away, thinking the nightmare is finally over. Weeks later, however, guess what happened? They were shocked to find the doll in the living room, beside a bench that was not used. It's sitting there in the living room. They never use it, but they were looking for something completely unrelated. And boom, they found the doll there. At that point, Elsa ceased to sing in the English rendition of Let It Go altogether, speaking only Spanish when pressed. The family double-packed the little demon bizarre doll and placed it at the bottom of their garbage, which was taken out on garbage day, hoping that the nightmare would be over. The day after, the Madonia family went on a trip out of town, but when they returned, guess who's returned too? It's none other than Elsa. She's also back. She was waiting in the backyard of their home. There was no denying at that point that something very strange was happening. The family had tried to find rational explanations for these weird occurrences, just couldn't come up with any anymore. So drastic action needed to be taken. They mailed the creepy doll to a family friend in Minnesota, and the story ended there apparently. The doll hasn't returned yet. Hopefully it never does. It's still with a friend. So, yeah, that was so weird. Imagine having a doll like that in your own house. Anyway, now our time is complete. Thank you for being here. You are safe. You are calm. Till next time, stay hydrated. Rest well.